this is where all of my editing for Desolate occurred. What would happen is after we'd shoot for the day, we'd discuss what we liked, what we didn't like, how we want to improve next time. I'd take all that footage and I would have already dumped it onto, like, say, a shuttle drive here. And then from that shuttle drive, I'd then throw it on to a backup drive. And the reason that I do that is you don't ever want your drives or your footage to get blown up from a corrupt drive or anything like that, because imagine from the actor's perspective, putting all that free time and work in, and then the material just going missing. And that's kind of something that I don't ever want to come land on me, so I just always back up your material. And you can get cheap drives at Future Shop or any electronic store. The prices keep going down and down. For like a 2 terabyte, you can get one for like $100 and something bucks. So there's no excuse to not be backed up more than you should. So my setup is a 2010 iMac, and I don't have a tower or anything. This is much cheaper, and to be honest, you can fit enough RAM in these. I think I got 16 gigs of RAM in here to basically use any software you need for editing a movie. You don't need to go overboard with it. It does more than enough, and I got it for a student discount when I was going to university. So, I mean, it does the job. I use Avid Media Composer, and I used Avid 5, and I used the educational discount on that as well. And I like Avid just because in my day job where I'm an assistant editor, that's the program that all the bigger movies use, and so I'm used to that workflow. Plus, I know how to go from that into other programs for post, which is very useful for finishing a movie by yourself if you already have an idea of the export workflows, etc. So what I do is I'd bring the material all in AMA format, and then I'd transcode all the material to DNX36, which is a really low res format, and so it doesn't take up a huge amount of memory for your computer when you're editing, which is great because you don't want to be bogged down by high res material. And then I edited it all on that. I learned from one editor that I worked with that the best thing to do is just literally for the day's material, line all it takes in one timeline and just watch them all the way through. And anytime you like a moment, I just hit the locator button. And what that does is then gives me a list of all my favorite moments in the movie, and then or for the scene. And then the goal is to then try and include all those favorite moments. So then it becomes just a bit of a puzzle for all the best moments to go back to back to back, so you don't try and have any weak spots in the scene. And editing on this, obviously, for an improvisational show was really difficult. You have to pick moments you like and try to flow them in without it seeming abrupt if they suddenly are in a different tonal range in one take compared to another. And so yeah, it was a huge process editing this whole thing. It took lots of time to try and get scenes that worked or use moments that you liked and keep out moments that just didn't fit in structurally for the whole story. As scenes came together, we could then also take that and say, oh, this is going to kind of make the story shift in different ways. So next time we go out, we can shoot that scene a little differently had we just had the outline, or we can go out and get reshoots quickly because, again, there's no crew, there's no money, it's just going and doing what you want to do. Once the whole thing was done, or when I needed VFX, I just downloaded the 30-day trial of Adobe After Effects, and I used that to finish all my VFX. I used videocopilot.net tutorials to help me figure out a lot of the smoke and plume and cloud effects that I needed to do. And you can find After Effects tutorials basically anywhere on YouTube. You don't need to be an expert or even know After Effects very well to figure out basic tutorials online. I also like to cut with a temp score, and so once you have a cut of the movie with a whole temp score, you kind of get a sense of the sound you're going for. And luckily I have a friend who was trying to get into, and he's a musician who was trying to get into music scoring. And he said that his company, WOMC, would like to try and score the movie. And so, I mean, you got friends that, and their names are Wade and Michael, and I mean, if you got friends that are willing to take on the project for free, it's just great because they get a chance to try and cut something, and it helps with their demo reel and stuff. And so it's just about, yeah, it's like helping each other out, and I'm very grateful that I found those. So I would have a cut, I exported that, handed it off to them, and then while they're scoring the film, rather than just sitting and waiting, I could then work on the color correction. And for that, I went into Blackmagic, has Resolve, and you can get Resolve Lite off their website. I downloaded that and basically exported a full cut and an EDL into Resolve. Would then color correct it into act breaks, because if you know, a feature length is a little too long, so cutting into little act breaks kind of makes things a little easier. And then export those act breaks, bring those into the After Effects trial, and I downloaded a program from Neat Video called the Neat Video Denoiser, and then I used that to take out and clean up the grain in the footage to make it look a little better. And then I went into, there's another website called R Grain, and you can buy grain stocks from them to put over footage. And I did that and layered back in some grain because I wanted the movie to have a little more of a rustic feel, you can say. So once I had all that stuff done, you then bring it back into the Avid. And the cool thing about Avid is they have a lot of the same plugins as Pro Tools. I'm not an expert at Pro Tools. I didn't want to get involved in having to learn that as well. So in Avid, I basically sound designed and mixed the whole thing in there. And they have more than enough to get by with a competent sound design. And I have a sound effect library that I've been building over the years through my day job as an assistant editor, where you just compile and keep collecting sound effects. And so basically the entire thing, the entire movie was done right here in this area, top to bottom. The only thing that had to get sent out was for the soundtrack. If I was musically competent, you know, I'd try something with GarageBand or something like that. I mean, the possibility is there to do everything right here. But obviously, if you've heard the movie, the soundtrack's fantastic, and they did a much better job than I ever could. So there's that.